For the Green Bay Packers to get where they want to go in 2025, they need these players to hit their ceilings. The guys whose play will ultimately dictate how far Green Bay can go this season.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, you will get and find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and this show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. For the Packers to get to where they want to get to win a Super Bowl, and they're close, it will rely on a handful of players either making a jump, making incremental progress, or ultimately reaching their potential this season for the Green Bay Packers. And the easiest, the most obvious answer is Jordan Love. I've talked enough about Jordan Love over the course of this offseason, and I have said I believe he's going to play like a top 5, top 6 quarterback this season if he's healthy. And we're going to talk about Jordan Love coming up. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about him here. It is the case for nearly every team in the NFL that for you to win a Super Bowl, your quarterback needs to play well. Even though I think Jalen Hurts mostly got backpacked to a Super Bowl win this last year, he still had to make a handful of plays, still had to play well in big moments, and in the postseason, he more or less did that. Beyond that, and I want to pick players who I think can actually get there. Like, I think it would be disingenuous, for example, to name Lucas Van Ness in this case, because I think if Lucas Van Ness hits his ceiling this year, his ceiling is like a really, really freaking good football player. I don't have any reason to believe that that would be the case. So we're going to have to live in the realm of reality here. So for that reason, I think this is going to surprise people. I am going to pick Edgerrin Cooper. Because if Edgerrin Cooper plays 17 games in the playoffs, the way that he played at the end of last season, he is the defensive difference maker this team needs. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go defense is I think the floor for the offense is so high. Even with some inconsistencies in the passing game, a quarterback that's hurt, some receiver nonsense catching the ball, especially on third down. This was a top 5 offense last year. I just expect the offense to be really good. I expect the passing game to be really good. Matt LaFleur as one of the best coaches in the league, one of the best play callers and play designers, game planners. I'm really not that concerned about the offense. I think if they do what they did last year and the defense can get a half step better, they can be a Super Bowl team. Now, Edgerrin Cooper played well in the playoffs, and that defense played well against the Eagles until the end when it was just like the dam broke. But that was because the offense had been decimated by injuries. So we're just going to have to assume some health here. Xavier McKinney, I've made the case, All-Pro last year. I have no reason to believe he's going to fall off. Rashan Gary, who we're going to talk about later in the show, is a really solid football player. I don't know why he would take a significant step forward. I think just finding some consistency in his role here with Jeff Hafley, getting more production because of more play from Brenton Cox and Lucas Van Ness, just little steps. I think that's built into the assumptions here. But if you get Edgerrin Cooper, I think Edgerrin Cooper has the ability to be truly a game breaker. And I'm not sure. I think Jordan Love, his best is because of the position that he plays, the most impactful player on this team. I am not sure anyone with a top percentile outcome that's like greater than, lower than 95th, like not getting the absolute outlier outcomes. Like you get the best version of Christian Watson. Once upon a time, I said the 99th percentile outcome of Christian Watson is like AJ Green. Okay, but we're probably never going to get that, even if that was true at some point. I think the most likely super high-end outcome for him is like Fred Warner, someone like that. And if you don't have to get that version this year, but if you're going to get something approximate to that, if he's going to level up this year, you raise the ceiling of this team immensely. Now, I do want to take an offensive player here as well. And it is someone that we've talked about a number of times over the course of this season. I think the receivers are what the receivers are. I think Matthew Golden is going to give them some of what they got from Christian Watson. I think Savion Williams is going to give them some inconsistencies, but also some flash plays that maybe they didn't have last year. I think Romeo Doubs is who he is. I think Jaden Reed is who he is. I think Dontavian Wicks is who he is, and I expect some regression to the mean with those drop numbers with those guys. I don't know if there's a significant step for any of those guys to make. I really don't. I think there's an incremental step for Jaden Reed. I think there's an incremental step for Dontavian Wicks. But I think the idea that any of those guys are going to suddenly be, one of the 2 or 3 best players at their position, or even one of the 10 best players in their position, is probably pretty unlikely. But if Tucker Kraft hits what I think is a reasonable outcome for him this year, he could be Trey McBride. I mean, maybe not in terms of pure volume. I mean, he had 100 catches last year or whatever it was. But I mean, in terms of on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, or in the red zone or in a big spot, you can call a play for him. And he's going to get open. He's going to make the catch. You can funnel offense through him. He's so reliable. He is so tough after the catch. He's so big and physical. He's a tone setter. Chris Long said on Mina Kimes' podcast this week that last year they did a training camp tour. The only team they saw big enough and physical, as big and physical in the same ballpark as the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft is one of the reasons for that. And he is a tone setter. And it's not a coincidence to me. You go back and you look, all those Aaron Rodgers teams, there were 2 places they were consistently inconsistent. Linebacker and tight end. Now they had that run with Jermichael Finley, but even that, like 2009, that Jermichael Finley was freaking awesome. And then he tears his ACL. Never quite the same. After that, you still get the versions of, from 11 until the neck injury. That player was a very good player. There were some inconsistencies there still. And so that team lacked physicality. And I think one of the reasons why is the inconsistencies at tight end. You go back to the Andrew Corliss days, the Richard Rodgers days. Like those guys, they weren't good enough. They weren't physical enough. Like if you're not going to be a great pass catcher, then you need to be an MFer in the run game. You need to have an elite skill. Their linebackers just were not that for too long. And it hurt them. You could see it in these big games when it's punch you in the mouth time in the playoffs. They did not have enough physicality. They did not have enough capital D dudes on their team to compete in those moments. But if you get a linebacker who becomes a star, and you have a tight end who can become, if not a star, one of the stalwarts at his position, I think it's out there for him for sure. You have created a team, and Dallas Goedert is no question one of those tone setters for Philadelphia. And Zach Bond changed the Eagles defense last year. Now they have not always prioritized linebacker, but finding that guy turn them into the number one defense in the league. Him finding the exact right group at the exact right time. They catch lightning in a bottle and they go win a Super Bowl, in part because Zach Bond has an all-pro outlier season. And I hope for his case, for his sake, that it continues. But you get that for the Packers with all the speed and explosiveness that they have at some of the other positions. To get those guys in those spots. Now you have a chance to compete against the Eagles, the Lions, the Commanders in the postseason. And that's what they need. Now, they're going to need Jordan Love to do it. One of the things that I hear from the Jordan Love detractors, though, is he YOLO balls, too loose with the football. Why is that a thing? It doesn't make sense to me. I'll tell you why next on Locked On Packers. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. I just went through this, going to see Chris Stapleton perform and trying to find, okay, I got to find the right ticket. Oh, is the view going to be okay? Am I getting good value? How am I possibly going to know if I'm getting good value? Well, Gametime has zone deals that will pick the best seats in the section for you. That's going to give you the best deal. Plus, in the app, you get a panoramic seat view so you know what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and go to Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. It's list time of year, and we're doing it over here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I don't want to spoil too much. I will be giving you my top 10 quarterback list. Where did Jordan Love check in? Where did Jordan Love check in on the top 100? He is on our Locked On Top 100. I put him higher than he ended up being. We'll see. But I went back and took a look because there is this perception of Jordan Love as a risk taker and as someone who's going to put the ball in harm's way. And I know he threw some interceptions this past season. But I think what people fixate on are the throws off his back foot that he gets away with. Not the ones that he doesn't. Now, there were two plays last year that I think are seared in a lot of people's minds. The pick six against the Lions and the pick six against the Rams. The pick six against the Lions was an extremely unlucky play. Jordan Love trying to find a window to get the ball to Josh Jacobs. It is not a good throw. The guy can barely move. It's pouring rain, and he cannot see Kirby Joseph, who's being blocked out by Zach Tom. Okay, it's a turnover, I guess. I mean, obviously it is. That is a pretty fluky play. And in general, pick sixes are pretty fluky. Like if Kirby Joseph just gets tackled right away, we don't think of it the same way. It was a momentous play in that moment. They needed more from Jordan Love because the rest of the team was not doing anything in that football game, could not catch a cold in that game, which is crazy ironic given how cold and wet it was. And then the Rams pick six was a Will Levis YOLO play. He's trying to avoid the safety, trying to throw it out of bounds, and he gets the bad luck of a bad play. He's trying to throw it out of bounds. There just happens to be a linebacker right there because Tucker Kraft sort of chip released on that play. Also, part of the bad luck on that play is they had that play blocked up, or they had enough guys to block up that play. They leave a free runner, comes in and tries to flatten Jordan Love, and Love has the wherewithal to stay on his feet and try and get the ball out of bounds, knowing he's going to avoid the safety. Those plays, let's not fixate on two plays in a season when he was hurt. Last year, he had the same turnover-worthy play rate as Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts, who are credited as being guys who take care of the ball. So on a per attempt basis, on a per snap basis, the same turnover-worthy play rate as guys who are lauded for how they protect the ball. 2023, he had one of the best turnover-worthy play rates in the league. In 2023, let me just give you a sampling of the quarterbacks that Jordan Love was better than at making throws that protected the ball. CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, ever heard of him? Josh Allen, ever heard of him? Brock Purdy, also supposed to be a guy who runs the system, takes care of the ball. Baker Mayfield, who, by the way, made it on one of the top 10 lists ahead of Jordan Love. Our pal Wendell Fajeda points out, career turnover-worthy play rate. Jalen Hurts, 2.8%. Jordan Love, 2.9%. Jared Goff, 3.3%. Jordan Love, as a career player, takes care of the ball better than Jared Goff. We fixate on these little plays. And you can say, okay, versus pressure. Felipe Reyes-Aceti pointed this out. Sorry if I butchered your name, Felipe. Jordan Love's 3.5% turnover-worthy play rate while facing pressure last year is the second lowest rate for a Packers quarterback in the last 10 seasons. That means in 2020, when Aaron Rodgers won the MVP, he had a higher turnover-worthy play rate against pressure than Jordan Love did last year. That means in 2021, Aaron Rodgers, when he won the MVP, had a higher turnover-worthy play rate against pressure than Jordan Love did last year. In fact, the lowest turnover-worthy play rate is actually 2018 Aaron Rodgers, probably because he was hurt. Now, this is part of the deal, but I went back and looked at all 11 interceptions. There's one really, really bad one from the pocket, clean pocket, wide open receiver. Tucker Kraft, last week of the season, just airmails it. Just airmails it. Throws a pick right to the corner. And by the way, that's also a little unlucky because I saw Caleb Williams in that same game make that same throw and there's just not a corner. He sails it so bad it's out of bounds. Like it's so bad it's good. It's like when you hit a drive right going right and it ends up in the next fairway and you're like, oh, okay, that's nice. Rather than under a tree. The idea that Jordan Love is some like wild risk taker is just not borne out by the tape or the statistics. And I do think part of it is that he does attempt throws in ways that most players wouldn't. And he does want to make every play. It's why he doesn't get sacked. He wants to make every play, but he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. When he does that, he's usually throwing it to a receiver. He wants to and can keep those plays alive. Last year, and I've made this case all offseason, so this is not new territory here. The turnovers, and he did increase his turnover-worthy play rate last year, were a direct result of his inability to move. And when you saw him last year at his best, it was not all off play action, big time shot plays, a ton of stuff from empty. And most of it was, I'm going to hit the back foot and get the ball out. But even that, like the first interception of the year, he did not plan and drive, in part because that field in Brazil was a nightmare. And you could see he slips on one of the first dropbacks of the game, trying to plant his back foot. And after that, he's throwing a lot of fadeaway jumpers, in part because I think I'm still convinced, and we don't know because he does end up getting hurt in that game. I still think he got hurt early in that game. Whether it was injured or hurt, I don't know. But he throws a lot of fadeaway jumpers after that. And I think the footing had a lot to do with it. You look at he throws 3 interceptions against the Vikings. One of them bounces off 2 Packers' hands. Throws an interception against the Cardinals. Bo Melton slips on an out, perfectly thrown ball. Like those are not turnover-worthy plays, but they end in interceptions. Imagine if those 2 interceptions come off the board. The difference between 9 interceptions and 11 interceptions in 15, and I guess it's really like 14 games, right? It looks pretty different. Looks pretty different. But that's not the way this works. So everyone has to Monday morning quarterback the outcomes rather than the process. He is always going to be a little bit of a variance player because he is a big game hunter. But the big game is there. He creates those big plays. And I'm not going to ask him to stop. It's why the comparisons to a player like Josh Allen, when I've talked about the way the roster is built and the way the Bills are set up to win and the Packers are set up to win, I think Jordan Love is capable of playing in a given season, not with the running to the same degree. I don't think he has the arm talent quite of Josh Allen, but I think Jordan Love is capable of playing at a level that goes, he had a season as good or better than Josh Allen in that particular season. I don't know how many quarterbacks in the NFL can say that. Production, sure. Like Brock Purdy had a season where, you look at the EPA numbers and the advanced numbers and you go, okay, that was as good or better than the Josh Allen season. But we all watch the games. I'm talking about you watch the games and the stats and everything says he was every bit as good as elite quarterback X. We can argue over who belongs in that conversation. Apparently the NFL argues about who belongs in that conversation, but Jordan Love is capable of doing that. He just needs to be healthy, and he does need to learn to play injured a little bit better. Aaron Rodgers could do it. Joe Burrow struggled to play hurt. It is in some ways a skill to play hurt. Jordan Love has got to figure that out. This is the first time in his NFL career he had to deal with it. And so, you hope he doesn't have to deal with it again, but chances are good. At some point, he's going to get banged up, dinged up, and be playing through something. He's got to be able to manage it. That's part of the deal too. I'm big on, if you're going to play, you need to be judged based on what you do on the field. Otherwise, don't play. So I can't make too many excuses in that way, but I'm not concerned about the turnovers because they're not a big deal. Our eyes can lie about this stuff sometimes because we fixate on, oh, that was a terrible play. He's being described like he's Jameis Winston, and he's just not. He produces like Jared Goff or like Jalen Hurts, who are caretakers to their offense and are lauded for being caretakers for their offense. Jordan Love can do more, and it's like he's dinged because he can do more. He tries to do more, and that puts him in a position occasionally, every once in a while, to make a boneheaded play. Now, we pivot from quarterbacks to someone who's going to hunt them. Rashan Gary, aside from being labeled as a defensive tackle on the NFL Top 100 list, one stat that explains everything last year for Rashan Gary. That's next on Locked On Packers. The Locked On NFL Top 100 will be released Wednesday, July 16th. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. East on Locked On Sports Today. Hey, I host that one. The Locked On Top 100 was voted on by the NFL hosts of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss your favorite players, where they were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are going to have plenty to say about that one, I can promise you. So this was put out by NFL Plus Next Gen Stats. And it was a stat about Rashan Gary that I think tells you everything about the way the Packers wanted Rashan Gary to play last year. Rashan Gary generated pressures on 23.5% of his pass rushes on third down last season. That is the sixth highest among qualifying pass rushers on third down last year. So he was extremely good at creating pressure on third down last year. Seems good, right? Well, Gary managed to generate pressure, this is again via Next Gen Stats, on just 7.8% of his pass rushes on early downs. 7.8. He tripled his pressure output on third down. What's the deal there? Well, Rashan Gary also happened to be the number one edge player in ESPN's run stop win rate. And the Packers' run defense went from one of the worst in the NFL to one of the best in the NFL. One of the things Rashan Gary could do off the rip in the NFL, his best trait as a collegiate player, was he is an extremely stout run defender. He can take on two at his size with his strength and his length, he is a stout run defender. Now, there are some times when he's not disciplined, but that's when he's chasing plays. It is clear they did not do a bunch of wide 9 last year and just say, hey, Rashan, go and cause hell. We thought that was going to be part of the Jeff Hafley plan, was going to be, hey, just let him be Nick Bosa out there. Joe Barry embraced that. Condensed the split a little bit better gap integrity up front. And he held up in the run game as well as any edge player in the NFL. What the Packers' plan was, and this is extremely Robert Saleh coded. This is something that he has always preached. You have to stop the run on early downs. And then you basically, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. That is not a new concept, to be sure, but it is very Bob Saleh in this case. And that is Jeff Hafley cut his teeth with Robert Saleh in San Francisco. And so it makes sense to say, look, if you want to get to 3rd and 8, you got to win 1st and 10. And you got to win 2nd and 10. And you have to be able to stop the run to do that. And there's a lot of made of like, you've got to, you rush the passer, you stop the run on the way to rushing the passer. But the Packers clearly committed to stopping the run on early downs last year. And it didn't make them, particularly vulnerable to pass pressure either, because their coverage, they were so sound on the back end. Now, there were times last year where I felt like they did not have some great plans early in the season against play action. That is true. And they were not able to generate pressure. Part of that is they were selling out to stop the run. But even against teams that are good play action teams by design, I understand the 49ers did not have all their guys. That's a really good play action team. No one is better at scheming that stuff up than Kyle Shanahan. Couldn't get it off. 2 on the Dolphins. Couldn't get it off. By the end of the year, they were excellent. The trade-offs that they were making, that was working. Some teams, they did use run blitzes on early downs. So that is playing the run on the way to the quarterback, if need be. You send that nickel, you send that extra linebacker. If it's a run play, you've got an extra guy. And if it's a pass play, now it's a blitz. Jeff Hafley got much more creative with that stuff than Joe Barry ever was. Joe Barry was not an early down run blitz guy. Jeff Hafley mixed that stuff in. And it does serve two masters because it allows you to create advantages in the box. If it is a pass, teams love to pass on early downs. Now this is like part of the NFL. Now you pass on first down. And you can gum up run fits and blocking assignments by sending an extra guy, shoot a gap, and now you've got a negative play. Now, you can hurt yourself by getting out of gaps if you don't play those things soundly. But the Packers were able to do that effectively last year. It did work. And I know I need to emphasize this. They were a top 10 rushing defense. They were a top 10 passing defense. So for all of the kvetching about the secondary and the pass rush and all that stuff, the plan last year worked. So I know you look at the sack numbers and you go, Rashan Gary underperformed. Well, did he? On third down, he was as effective as any pass rusher in the NFL. In those must-have pass rush situations, he was very effective. And on early downs, he was the best damn run defender in the league at the position. That's a really good, really useful football player. We just don't have good tools and terminology and the nuance or the time, often cases, to talk about what makes those players so useful for your football team. It's why, guys, for years, someone like Calais Campbell can just go underappreciated. And I think Rashan Gary has a chance to set up like a very similar career that he's not truly appreciated until later in his career, maybe. I don't know. He's really good. And he's going to be important for the Packers to win this year. If he can recreate what he had last year and then you get a little more consistency out of the pass rush of Devontae Wyatt and or Kenny Clark and or Lucas Van Ness and or Brenton Cox, then this defense can really have something. And or Edgerrin Cooper as a blitzer if you want to do that. We'll see. All right. Top 100 time. It's almost here. It's coming. We're going to have fun. Oh, baby, we're going to have fun. I promise you we're going to have fun with this top 100. Follow me on the social medias, Peter_Bukowski on X, on Instagram. The podcast, Locked On Packers, wherever you get social media. We're also wherever you get podcasts. Leave a rating, leave a review. Go subscribe over on our YouTube page. You can watch us so you can stay Locked On Packers.